Pro Max versus iPhone 14 Pro Max speed test. Let's get right into a boot up in 3, 2, go and see which one can get there first. Now, there has been some rumors, or not rumors, but a lot of press about the iPhone 15 Pro Max overheating. Now, I'm going to do my updated review. I did an unboxing last week, and we'll talk about that later. iPhone 15 Pro Max turns on faster. A17 Pro chip, A16 Bionic chip. But we're going to pay attention to the heat here since everybody's talking about the heat, and I'll tell you my thoughts after, running through the speed here. Let's do a quick battery check too. So I'm at 86% over here on the iPhone 14 Pro Max. We're also at 86%. So we'll check that at the end of the video. Okay, and when it comes to Face ID, they both have the raise to wake feature. So we'll go ahead and look at them. And both of them unlock exactly at the same time. So Apple didn't bring any fingerprint, Touch ID, nothing to the newer phones. So it's basically exactly the same there. Now, from a general performance standpoint, there is zero, and I mean zero difference. You cannot tell any difference in smoothness. You don't really need to though, because Apple has nailed it with the smooth factor with iOS combined with the ProMotion. They've been doing that since the iPhone 13 Pro Max. So no person's going to notice any difference unless you're coming from a 60 Hertz iPhone in the general performance. But if you are, you're going to really like that. When you go to the control center, about the same. There is zero differences here at all. Okay, so confirming the software, the iPhone 15 Pro Max has you can see right there, 17.0.2, and then on the right we have 17.0.2. This is clocked a little higher with the 3.78 gigahertz over here, just slightly behind at 3.46 gigahertz. But take a look at the memory. That is something to notice that is different. The iPhone 15 Pro Max finally has a 6 or 8 gigabytes of RAM. So definitely you're going to see 2 gigs of RAM more. It's about time. I think we've had 8 gigs of RAM on competing phones for many, many years, but we all know that iOS doesn't need a ton of RAM to perform well, as you're going to see in this video. Okay, so we've arrived at the app test. You can see everything closed out for both. Let's begin with calendar, and you're going to see about the same. We're going to go into clock, and you're going to see about the same. Let me go ahead and go through a few applications here, and you'll see zero difference whatsoever. Now, we're going to see a little bit more. That was the iPhone 15 Pro Max. We're going to have to see a little bit more about the performance when I do the render, because I have a 13-minute 4K video on iMovie. So I wasn't about to just open apps for these because these are pretty close. And you could kind of take this test as the A16 Bionic, which is in the regular 15. Let's go into Groupon. A lot of people are saying they're really digging the regular 15s because the regular 15s are offering something that feels a little bit more of an upgrade with the dynamic island, USB-C, matte textured back glass. So I'll be talking about those two in upcoming speed tests. Let's go into Twitter or X, and you'll see so far identical performance. Now people are going to say, well, Nick, bro, what you're doing does not equate to really check. This guy's clueless. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Listen, I'm an iPhone buyer, like a lot of you, and I don't know about you, but I like to use the phone to open applications and do things of that sort. I'm not trying to use the phone to make it a gaming machine, which you can, but I mean, for everyday applications and games and camera is how I use a phone. And so let's go into Amazon. Let me know how you use your phone. Do you really push your phone to the level where you're really going to, really test the chip's performance, besides like when you're just checking it when you first get the phone, maybe you run a benchmark here and there, but in your day-to-day life, are you really pushing it to the level where you're going to notice any performance issues? Because I haven't been able to do that since like iPhone 12 Pro Max or 13 Pro Max. Pretty much the same there. Subway Surfers. But I can tell you what I do love is that these ProMotion displays really make the iPhone just buttery smooth, along with Apple, optimizing it and stuff like that. and you'll see they have the same dynamic islands. If you do look closely, you're going to notice that the bezels are definitely a little thicker on the right, but this is only barely noticeable. It's not majorly so, but I'm still happy that Apple made an improvement there because, hold on, every improvement is an improvement. So you can see Temple Run 2, pretty close. I mean, not much to speak of. And so, you know, the only thing about the iPhone 14 Pro Max is that I feel like it should have had longer zoom last year. So if you got a 14 Pro Max, I'd still keep it, but it should have had longer zoom. It should have had USB-C last year. It's kind of like, why didn't it have it last year? But hey, we have it now, which is kind of nice. And you'll see we're going to load up first here. Looks like, there we go. So now we're testing something that takes a little more power. And you've seen that the iPhone 15 Pro Max showed its muscle. It's got a faster GPU and a faster CPU. And I know, of course, we're not really pushing the GPU or CPU opening up Call of Duty, but I just wanted to mention that it does have that. And it is loading these more intense games. Looks like a little faster than the iPhone 14 Pro Max, but sometimes I say that and then I swallow my own words because then the next phone shuts me up. But we're going to see here that no, it looks like 15 Pro Max is going to load pub first as well. So we're at the lobby already with the 15 Pro Max, and there we go with the 14 Pro Max. So you're going to get better performance here when it comes to the heavier stuff. Let's go into Geekbench 6. And it's like the same story. This is faster on the right, probably because it's optimized more. And I heard people in the comments saying, look, bro, you need to wait a little bit. Slow down, bucko. It's time for you to go ahead and get a, you need to slow down, and why don't you do a speed test? And, once the iPhone's had some time on the market, I will. I do speed tests later on. Have you not been around these parts? We do speed tests 6 months later, 3 months later. So stay tuned, be subscribed. We got those coming too. What, you think I don't think about that? It's just I want to see what it looks like now. People are buying an iPhone 15 Pro Max now. They want to know. Let's go into 13-minute render you'll see right here. And overall, that's going to finish out the app opening portion. You've seen that throughout the app opening portion, it was mostly just the heavier games with everything else being nearly identical. And the games were about 1 second or less faster. So you're going to see not a major change if you have a 14 Pro Max, and not a big difference from the regular 15s or 15 pluses. Now, heat check, there is some heat right here, but there's not enough to really make me concerned. If I had a case on it, I wouldn't even feel that. There's a little bit of heat here on the 14 Pro Max as well, but maybe slightly less than the iPhone 15 Pro Max. Still, not terrible. It's definitely not going to burn my hand. All right, so let's go through the applications. I'm going to start with the iPhone 15 Pro Max. Let's see if we get any reloads here. And so far, buttery smooth. As you would expect, man, Apple has nailed animations. It is just a joy to use these applications and then go back to an older application, come into a new one. It is just a joy to use this device. And any of the iPhones, but really the ones with the ProMotion, it's just pleasing to the eyeball. Let's go over here to the iPhone 14 Pro Max, and immediately what I notice is when I pick this up, the iPhone 14 Pro Max just feels like a tank by comparison to that phone. I'm really noticing the comfort factor. Really, you notice it throughout the day-to-day. So Apple has once again found a way to improve the experience more, say, than just, making something look super different. See, it comes down to, this is a product millions of people use, and Apple seems to focus on things that really people will notice while they're using it. And I definitely noticed the comfort factor of using this new 15 Pro Max day to day, but you'll see in the RAM management portion, neither of them stuttered at all. Really great at holding those applications. All right, so how about the web browsing? We'll go to apple.com. Since this is an Apple video, you'll see a little bit faster on the 15 Pro Max. We'll hit learn more. Hold on, learn more on both. A little bit faster on the left, and they're loading up some graphics there. Let's go ahead and go to yahoo.com here. We'll go to yahoo.com here, 3, 2, go. You'll see about the same scrolling about the same. So internet browsing generally going to be about the same. So let's go ahead and take it over here to a Geekbench test. We'll go to Geekbench 6. We're going to run CPU benchmark here, CPU, and I'll be back when they are done. Okay, so we're about to wrap it up here. The iPhone 15 Pro Max looking a hair quicker. Both of them taking around 4.5 minutes to 5 minutes to complete this test. Now they're much faster than finishing it on an Android phone, but you can see 2875 on the single core with a 7107 on the multi-core score. The iPhone 14 Pro Max several seconds behind to finish this Geekbench test, which definitely shows that the iPhone 15 Pro Max CPU is quicker. You'll see only by a little bit in the single core, but by a good margin in the multi-core score, but not like you would expect. It's not like a super leap forward. And somebody was mentioning in the comments a couple of days ago, they were talking about how it's not so much about just opening apps and the speed portion and the benchmarks. It's the Pro chip, the 3nm being the first in the world, should power things like Vision Pro or work well with things like that in the future. And it's more for the future, and yeah, that's fine. But at the same time, like I said, I feel like if we seen an M series chip in an iPhone, it would be mind blowing if they could find a way to shrink the M series. But I feel like they're just gonna stick with their own, smartphone A series chip. But I just always had a dream of a M series chip in an iPhone. Let me know your thoughts on that one below. So let's go into 3D Mark here, and we'll see how they perform on the Wildlife Extreme test. Now this is a 1-minute test. It kind of just tests out the GPU, gives us a take on the graphics and stuff like that. So I'll be back when they're in with their final results, their frame rates, and how they perform. So stay tuned, I'll be back. Okay, and our final 3D Mark scores are in 3455 on the 15 Pro Max, and ooh, it feels toasty now. 3097 over here on the right, and this also feels warm, but not as warm as the iPhone 15 Pro Max. You'll see 20 FPS, 18.5. This is gonna make barely any difference in gaming. Yeah, this score is better than 34% of other 15 Pro Maxes, but other devices about 8% faster. You could see down there. So I think most people are probably not gonna truly benefit from this CPU just yet. But if you do play, if you're one of those people that play those console level games, you'll definitely love the 15 Pro Max. It's going to outshine this one for sure. Now, the last thing we're going to do to really push these phones to their limits is we're going to render 4K. Now, this is a static video. I don't have many clips in here, but I just set them up on a tripod. And so I have a 4K 13-minute render here. So this is going to take a while, so I'll be back when this is done, and I'll speed it up so you can kind of see, where the progress bar is. So I'll hit save video in 3, 2, go, and I'll be back when they're done exporting. The 14 Pro Max finishes this 13-minute 4K render faster than the iPhone 15 Pro Max. There's only one explanation for this, and that is that the iMovie application probably not optimized properly yet, or to take advantage of that chip on the iPhone 15 Pro Max. We could potentially get different results in something like LumaFusion as well, but there's the 15 Pro Max still behind here. And this is kind of a lot though. This is by we're already talking about 30 seconds to a minute already. So this is definitely, this phone, yeah, it probably definitely needs some updates before it's fully ready to be faster than a phone that's been out for a full year. But they're still both very good and fast at this. And I noticed that their batteries are only draining about a percentage difference. So they're keeping pace about the same. And there's the 15 Pro Max. Now I want to do another heat check. And this time just warm. The iPhone pretty well handles their own applications very well. Barely warm to the touch here on the 14 Pro Max. So the thing that really made this toasty was the 3D Mark test. That was the main one that made it toasty. So we're going to wrap it up here. iPhone 15 Pro Max versus 14 Pro Max speed test. Will you notice a difference? And the answer is no, you won't. Will you be able to play some higher quality games in the future as apps get updated and stuff like that? Yes, you will. Does the 15 Pro Max transmit a little more heat through the titanium body? Yes, it does. You can feel it a little bit more than on the stainless steel phone, but overall, it keeps the performance of the 14 Pro Max and jumps it up just a little bit. And we need a few updates and a few application optimizations, and this phone is going to easily be faster by about, I'd say, 10 to 20% over the 14 Pro Max in the day-to-day. So Apple, again, pushing their phone a little bit further. Like I say every year, it's just a little bit of a leap. And at this point, we're probably at peak performance anyway. Let me know your thoughts. Which one you prefer? Are you going to stick with the 14 Pro Max? You going to go with a 15 Pro Max for the other features besides just performance? Know down below in the comments. And quick battery check before we wrap it up. You'll see 80% right here, and then 79% over there. So we started at around 86 on both the draining about 6 to 7%, with the 15 Pro Max only a hair better than the 14 Pro Max. So those ratings on Apple's comparison, when you go on the website that say they have basically the same rating, they're pretty much on par there. It is basically the same. Thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you haven't already. Nick here. Be sure to be well, and peace.